You're listening to The Jake Asman Show on the SportsMap Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
Oh, baby, a lot to cover. NFL Draft is upon us. 8 days, 10 hours, 47 minutes, and 38 seconds. But who's counting? Not me. Certainly not me. A lot to get into with the NFL Draft. Let's kind of recap what was a busy day of everyone wanting to trade down. Everyone wanting to get out of their current spot. Detroit and Atlanta remain open to dealing down. Atlanta's at 4. Detroit's at 7. Carolina is another team that is weighing a trade down from number 8. Denver has explored trading down from number 9 or trading up from 9. Denver's a fascinating team. More on them coming up. The Eagles, who have already made a move to trade down, right, from 6 to 12, are now exploring a move to trade up. What? Or they could trade down again. And then the New York Giants and Dave Gettleman, who has never orchestrated a trade back in his career as a GM. They are reportedly interested in trading down from number 11. So here's the thing. Every NFL team is fielding calls on what they're going to do in the draft. That's just how it works. How many NFL teams are actually going to trade down, though? That's the question I have. How many teams are going to be able to find the adequate trading partner where they're moving down? That means someone's coming up. How many teams realistically will come up? That's the better way to phrase it. Because everyone wants to trade down and get more picks. It's not so easy. We've already had 2 teams move up, right? The Niners, of course, had the biggest move of the offseason by going from 12 all the way up to number 3 with the Dolphins. So we know the draft's going quarterback, 1 through 3, and then we'll see. I think a lot of what determines the trade down is based on what happens with what San Fran does with the 3rd pick. I think that will determine how many teams are actually interested in moving up because, yeah, there's always going to be a lot of teams that want to trade back. Trading back always sounds nice in theory when you have all these quarterbacks that are going to go early in the first round. It pushes good players, non-quarterbacks, down the board where you can get them later on in the first round. Always way more teams want to move back than ones that want to move up. And this year is a year you don't want to reach on someone. If you don't have all the medicals on a player, you haven't had a lot of in-person visits. A lot of guys didn't play because they opted out due to the COVID virus. It's a tough year to have a premium draft pick. It's harder to probably get it right this year than in previous years. At least last year, you had the combine, you had a full college season. This year is a way different year. So everyone wants to trade down. That really isn't news. The story is how many teams actually could trade up. And these are the teams I look at that are all picking within the first 20 picks that I think could actually move up. The Denver Broncos at number 9. I am not sold on Drew Lock as a quarterback. I'm just not. I think if there's a player they like, they can move up to number 4 with the Falcons or number 5 with the Bengals. I could see it happening. But once again, this depends on what the Niners do. If the Niners go Mac Jones, I think someone's going to move up to try and get Justin Fields because he's that talented. The Niners go Mac Jones, I could see someone moving up to try and get Trey Lance, have him sit for a year because he's barely played. He only played 1 game last year. He's only played 1 full season at the FCS level. But the raw talent's there. So there could be a team that would move up for Fields or Lance. Other than the Niners, I don't know if there's really a team that's like moving up to get Mac Jones. I feel like Mac Jones is the type of prospect where if he falls into your lap, you'll take him. But are you moving heaven and earth to get him? I have my doubts about that. So all this depends on what the Niners do at 3. If they go Mac Jones, I think there's way more of a chance teams come up to try and get either Fields or Lance. If they go Fields at 3, there's a chance a team could come up for Lance, but I don't think there's going to be a desperation to move up for Lance like there would be if it's Fields. Other than Denver at number 9, I don't know if there's another team in the top 10 that I see moving up for a quarterback. Jacksonville's 1, the Jets are 2, Niners are 3. If Atlanta doesn't go quarterback, that also opens the door for a trade-up. But who knows for sure what the Falcons are doing? What if they go quarterback at 4? Niners go Mac Jones 3, Falcons take Fields at 4. Then there's one quarterback left that has a first-round grade in Trey Lance. Then what? Who's coming up? To 5 with the Bengals, 6 with the Dolphins. Detroit at 7, I guess, could take a quarterback if there's someone there, but doesn't strike me as a Lions move. Seems like they're going to try and win with Goff and just build the rest of the roster out this year. Carolina at 8. I mean, if there's a quarterback there, we've talked about this. I would still draft someone if they like a player there. As much as I love Sam Darnold, bring in some competition for Sam. Have them duke it out, and you know what? You figure out the rest based on who plays the best. And then you can always trade the quarterback that loses the job next offseason. But in the top 10, there's only one team I could see actually moving up, and that's the Denver Broncos. So that's the top 10. Now, here's where it gets interesting. You look at the New England Patriots. They're picking there at 15. That's an obvious one. Right? I think we all could see New England moving up for the right player. Is that right player Mac Jones? Maybe. Is that right player Trey Lance? Perhaps. Is that right player Justin Fields? I think it's one of those three because, well, duh. Those are the only three that will be available. But here's a team that I think could actually come up and get a quarterback if the right quarterback's there. Look out for the Vikings at number 14. I understand that they still have Kirk Cousins. You know, for this year, he's their guy for sure. His contract makes him, untradeable. But the contract's not always going to be cost prohibitive. I looked it up. The Vikings could save $35 million if they were to cut Kirk Cousins next offseason. So what if the Vikings at 14 moved up a couple spots to 10 with the Cowboys, 11 with the Giants? What if the Vikings moved up to even 12 with the Eagles, just to get in front of the New England Patriots to prevent them from getting a quarterback? See, that's what you got to look at here. Minnesota's at 14, New England's at 15. New England seems like a team that could certainly go up and get a quarterback. So if that's the case, Minnesota, if they want a guy, they're going to have to get in front of the Patriots if New England's going to try and move on. Watch out for the Vikings as a team that can maybe be in on Trey Lance. I see the draft going like this. Lawrence, Wilson, Fields. Until I see the Niners actually take Mac Jones, that's how I'm operating. And I think Trey Lance is the one quarterback that teams would move up for. I like Mac Jones. I don't know if teams are trading away future ones to get him. Trey Lance is the guy that's the physical freak, but he's raw. He's barely played. He could use a year behind a veteran starter to just learn the NFL. Minnesota's not a bad place for that. You can move on from Cousins after next year. He's basically peaked. He's an older player. Minnesota can make some sense. Here's the problem with my Vikings theory, though. You have a GM and a head coach that basically need to win to save their jobs. Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer probably need to go to the playoffs this year. Otherwise, they could be run out of town. So they're more likely to probably pick someone that could be a year one starter for them, a year one contributor. But if there's a quarterback there, I mean, maybe you could sell the franchise on hope. Your fan base on, hey, we have Kirk for one more year, and then look what we have. We have our franchise guy in waiting in Trey Lance. Watch out for the Vikings. So Detroit and Atlanta remain open to dealing down. Carolina's another team that's weighing a trade down. Denver's explored moving up and down. Philly's explored trading down and up. The Giants could trade back. Newsflash, every team always answers the phone about potentially moving up and moving down. That's called due diligence if you're a GM. That's how it works. And once again, there's always way more teams that want to move back than ones that want to move up. Takes two to tango. Which teams are actually going to move up? Denver at 9, Washington at 19, Chicago at 20. Those are the three I think are the most likely to maybe move up. But watch out for New England at 15 and Minnesota at 14. Agree or disagree? 800-224-2004. Let's bring Ron Cover now into the discussion. So, Ron, out of the teams I went through there, teams that actually could trade up, which one do you find to be the most realistic?
I think there's two right now, and I would say that's Broncos and Patriots. I think the Broncos look more enticing because they still have a top 10 pick. They're desperate for a quarterback. I'm with you. I don't know if Drew Lock is the answer. I think the Falcons sitting there weighing out all the options and kind of playing that game of seeing, okay, where do you think other teams are going to go Could they still get maybe not their top guy, maybe their second guy at number 9? I think that's heavy. And then also the fact that I can't imagine the Falcon fan base allowing their team to do a deal that would help the Patriots out.
There's really 2 teams that could influence New England's fate. It's the Niners and what they do at 3, and if Atlanta actually goes quarterback. Because you're right, Atlanta is a team that is the obvious team you move up and get a quarterback with.
Yeah. Now I think if the Niners were to pick Justin Fields, or if the Niners are to go Trey Lance, I think the Patriots would go, well, let's just sit back and wait and see. I think if the Niners go Mac Jones, I think that's too enticing for the Patriots, and they're going to go throw the farm at number 4.
And that would
under reasonable. Yeah. Now the Broncos, I think, are, they're probably putting a package together and just have some guy sitting there with his finger above the send button, just being waited told when to send it. Because I don't think they care. It shows the quarterbacks that they've drafted in the past couple of years that they really don't care who's available. They just want to grab one, and then they'll work their magic and ruin his career too.
I just love these reports of, wow, watch out for this team potentially moving back. We hear the same thing every year.
Yeah.
The reality is every team would love to move back, get more picks, and still get a player they could have had if they moved back in the first place. That's why you do it. It's easier said than done.
And that's why I say, the Falcons and Broncos, if they were to come up with a deal, that would make most sense for the Falcons, because it's still number 9. It's not a bad selection. You may not get your top guy. Maybe the Falcons are hoping that Kyle Pitts falls to 9. I don't see it happening, because maybe that's the guy that they want all along, because they don't need a quarterback. They have one. They need to find a quarterback eventually, but they can find one in the later rounds. I don't know if the Falcons even think Kyle Pitts is someone that they need. They need a defense. They need to add to their defense.
Here's what I would do if I'm Atlanta. If I'm not going Pitts at 4, I hope Denver wants to come up from 9, and I'll take Patrick Surtain to lock down my secondary at the corner spot with that 9th pick. You probably get the best defensive prospect in the draft at number 9.
Because he's not worth 4.
No.
That's the problem with anyone coming out on the defensive side of the ball. There's no one that's a top 5 pick on defense this year. Sorry, guys.
One of those drafts, but there's 5 quarterbacks that could go in the top 10, perhaps. We shall see. Those are the teams I look at, though, right? Those teams. Once again, to recap, here are the teams I think are most likely to actually trade up. We know everyone wants to trade down. Here's who actually could move up: Denver, Chicago, Washington, New England, and Minnesota. Now, if you do it in draft order, that'd be number 9, Denver, number 14, Minnesota, 15, New England, 19, the football team, 20, Chicago. That's how I see it. Agree or disagree? 800-224-2004 is the number. You could write your thoughts in on the stream. We'll read the best responses over the air. We'll take a quick break and continue. More on the NFL draft. Plus, Kyrie Irving. He's the only one that's actually playing right now for the Nets. Bad news for the Nets with a setback for James Harden. We'll talk about the Nets' chances of actually winning a title despite all these injuries. We'll get to that next right here on the Jake Asman Show on Sports Map Radio.
Let's go.